It's Monday. The Cleveland Browns celebrating another victory Monday, 27-0 shutout of the Arizona Cardinals. Cleveland Browns' first shutout victory since 2007. Second time this season, holding a defense under 100 total yards. We put it under the lens with PFF's John Kosko. Your latest Locked On Browns starts now.
You are Locked On Browns, your daily Cleveland Browns podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day.
Welcome back, my friends, to the show that never ends, your daily delivery of all things Dog Pound LGB on the LOB, the Locked On Browns podcast, brought to the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Your host, Jeff Lloyd, joined today by PFF's John Kosko. I appreciate everybody who makes Locked On Browns their first listen every single day. Join the everyday crowd, which seems to just keep getting bigger and bigger, by subscribing to Locked On Browns YouTube channel. And, of course, Locked On Browns is always available, always free, wherever you get your podcasts. Today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. Make every moment more. Right now, new customers get $150 in bonus bets with any winning $5 moneyline bet. That's $150 if your team wins. Visit FanDuel.com/lockedon to get started. As I said, we've got John Kosko here. You guys see the set list for today. A little prefacing: when we do get to segment 3, the news has just broken. Jed Wills will be going on IR with an MCL injury, described as not season ending. Now, if you guys saw, I did retweet a tweet from a doctor who looked at the injury. He said, obviously, he thought it possibly could have been a fracture, could have been an MCL thing. Said the air casters we all got a little nervous about could have been just, obviously, the Browns doing their due diligence. But it does look like best case scenario for Jed Wills going on IR with the designation to return. But John, all of this yesterday, and obviously all of this for the rest of the 2023 season, is all going to be about DW4. Beginning was slow. I think some sloppiness as far as footwork, accuracy on some underneath stuff. And it's weird because normally the short stuff returns quicker than the long ball. But John, he had absolute couple of missiles yesterday, but Deshaun Watson back in the fold for the Browns.
Yeah, it was a little struggle early on, but he had a couple of big-time throws, and one to Amari Cooper in the fourth quarter over double coverage was really special. That was a great throw. And you talk to quarterbacks. Some quarterbacks, it really kind of depends on what they're comfortable with. Some quarterbacks are find quick game to be the hardest thing because it's super timing based. You have to have, precise footwork, and, your guys have to be in the right spots at the right time really quickly, versus like when you're running, running deeper routes and, even deep intermediate type of routes, they like those better because things open up for them more because everything's condensed with the quick game. So, maybe Watson's that way, where he's just more comfortable with the deep throws. We know over the course of his career, he's been one of the best deep ball throwers in the NFL, when it's time with Houston. So yeah, for him, just a little bit inaccurate to start off the game, but there's the reason why they play 4 quarters. He was great at, after, especially in the second half, and got a lot more comfortable then when things seemed to be clicking a lot better for him and the offense in general.
Well, I mean, you talk, you can equate it to other sports. Obviously, you talk to second baseman, you talk to shortstops. Sometimes, obviously, making the play, getting the play in a double play scenario to second base before first kind of just throws off the timing because obviously it's a different way it works. And repeating the short throws is a little more difficult to do, obviously, from a practice scenario to a live scenario. It was very important, obviously, that Deshaun got out there yesterday. And there were a lot of people, just save him for Baltimore and Pittsburgh. You can't just save him for the best teams. And guess what? And then he shows up rusty, and all of a sudden you're down 17-0 to the Ravens. It's the same, recipe that you had last time that you played him. But, John, just going straight on his last 2 complete starts, And, his record technically right now is 7-4 as the Cleveland Browns starter. So for whatever ugliness people want to put attached to it, and look, I'm not going to lie, it's always not been a Mona Lisa, for God's sakes. We're all not stupid. We're not blind. But his last 2 complete starts for this team has been the absolute 110% best version that we have seen from Deshaun Watson up to this point.
Yeah, absolutely. You take those 2 starts where he's gotten a full game of reps. You don't include the Indy game because he got 5 dropbacks or whatever it was in that game. His grade in the 2 games of the Titans and the Cardinals is a 79.8, passing grade of a 79.1. That is exactly the type of quarterback that you would need, and you would only assume that it will continue to get better from there. Both games were excellent. You talk about like from a 4 big time throws, just 1 turnover where they play in those games. He's taken 4 sacks in those games, which is not bad by any means, but 68% completion percentage, 109.3 passer rating. Like everything looks good in that. So if this is the Deshaun Watson that we're going to be getting, I think every single Browns fan should be signed up for that and excited. And, we'll see what he can do, obviously, against the Baltimore Ravens this coming week, which is, in my opinion, probably playing the best football in the NFL right now. They've just been absolutely dominant, crushing teams. They went up against the Lions a couple weeks ago, who looked like they were all the best team in the NFL and just absolutely slaughtered them. They just obviously just kicked the crap out of the Seahawks, who the Browns, obviously just lost to. So they're playing extremely good football. So it's going to be a really good test for Deshaun Watson, kind of get a good barometer of where his game is at right now. And he was able to have a game going into that one to knock off the rust, which is exactly what you kind of want in that situation.
Yeah, with this segment, obviously, we're running a little long on time here, John. But the Browns, look, with moving on from Donovan Peoples-Jones, look, it's great that Amari Cooper has been in his bag this year and has been fantastic. The Browns, regardless, though, need to find a way to get more contribution from that wide receiver room here in the coming weeks. You're not going to look. Baltimore's going to make it a point to take away Amari Cooper. Pittsburgh's going to make it a point to do the same as well. Other guys here have to start finding ways to get open, and Deshaun Watson obviously is going to have to find a way to fixate his eyes away from Amari Cooper and obviously to other guys here.
Yeah, David Njoku has been starting to come on in recently, but it's a lot of it's kind of screen game type stuff, and you definitely Elijah Moore needs to really kind of step it up, and I think it's been an interesting weird way this season for the receiving group because you haven't had to have consistent quarterback play because of the injury to Deshaun Watson. So, we'll see what happens in the second half of the year if these guys can, all grow together and they start, things start firing on all cylinders with them.
We're going to switch it up here. And me and John were messaging this morning, and obviously they're out now. I have never seen anything like this. Maybe for other teams, but certainly not associated with the Cleveland Browns. As far as grades assigned, you guys have had your complaints in some of the wins this year. Well, it's not going to be the case this week. Jeff Lloyd, your latest Locked On Browns. Appreciate you all for being along for the ride. PrizePicks is the largest daily fantasy sports platform in North America. We are the easiest and most exciting way to play DFS. It's just you against the numbers. Instead of battling thousands of other players, including pros and sharks, you pick more than or less than on 2 to 6 player stat projections and watch the winnings roll in. With basketball season here, you can now pick combo specials across football and basketball from the Specials League, a league created specifically for combo projections that includes 2 or more players from different sports or leagues. For example, LeBron James and Travis Kelce at a 10.5 combo of 3 points made plus receptions. You want to play alongside some of PrizePicks' favorite players like rapper Meek Mill and comedian Andrew Schultz? You can find community plays under the promos tab of the app to view entries from some of the biggest names in the PrizePicks community each week. PrizePicks even offers a reboot policy so that if your entries stay in play, even if one of your players gets injured, for football and basketball games, if you have a player who exits the game in the first half and does not return in the second, that player is rebooted. PrizePicks is the only daily fantasy sports platform with an injury insurance policy. Quick example, yesterday, if you had gone with Deshaun Watson over, a Jerome Ford rushing yards over, an Amari Cooper receiving yards over, you would have cashed out. You can go to prizepicks.com/LockedOnNFL and use the code LockedOnNFL for a first deposit match up to $100. Go to prizepicks.com/LockedOnNFL and use the code LockedOnNFL for a first deposit match up to $100. Jeff Lloyd, we continue on here. Your latest Locked On Browns. I appreciate everybody who makes Locked On Browns their first listen every single day. Joined today by PFF's John Kosko. John, you've gotten some criticism, obviously, and some people questioning, with the defensive dismantling of Cincinnati, the defensive dismantling of the Tennessee Titans, and maybe where the grades didn't always match. But John, looking at the grades today, this kind of looks like, for the first time in my recollection, it was an open book test, essentially. These guys and the numbers, I think it was 4 in the 80s, they had 2 or 3 in the 90s, like 25 guys all on the defensive side of the ball, 70 or north, or 25 players overall, 70 or north.
Yeah. They had good grades early in the season, like overall defense was 76 against the Bengals. Part of that is when we grade, if the quarterback overthrows somebody and that cornerback is also cooked, like the cornerback is not forcing an incompletion, he's not making it difficult for that quarterback, right? So he's getting downgraded even if like there's a positive grade from the pass rush or something like that. So like there's a mixed bag when it comes to things like that. And that was the case for, some of these games where they were, obviously the production was insane, but maybe the grades weren't matching in terms of the eyes of the fans or what have you. So this game, 92.0 for the defense, 88.1 run defense. You had a 77.8 tackling grade, even that 90.3 pass rush and a 90.4 coverage grade, like all extremely high marks across the board, with just players playing lights out. It wasn't a situation where the quarterback was missing throws left and right. He wasn't great in this game, but that was a large part of that was forced by the Browns defense and the fact that the guy's a rookie and not able to handle the type of pressure. But like there's no grading on a curve type thing. It's like, well, he's a rookie, so we're not going to grade it as heavily. It's like we grade everybody equally, regardless of who their opponent is, just so you can see, like, you're comparing apples to apples in that regard. Like, how well are you executing your assignments and stuff like that? So, Sione Takitaki, 93.0 in this game, obviously highlighted by the interception that he had. Shelby Harris, the strip sack that he had, 91.8. Cameron Mitchell, he was excellent in his plays that he had. He had a number of stops there, a pass breakup. Was just excellent. Myles Garrett, of course, 89.6. He wasn't even the highest graded player for the Browns. He had to, he was able to do what he did. Darius Smith, 87.9. So it's just across the board, players were just playing at a extremely high level, making plays left and right, and they were the ones forcing the incompletions rather than quarterback missing open players.
I mean, you want to talk about an absolute dismantling, and this is stuff I had talked about late in the week last week. When you talked about the Cardinals are going to be down, their top 3 rushers, obviously, if you included Dobbs in that number, their second leading receiver, Clayton Tune making his first NFL start. And, again, I absolutely agree with what the Cardinals did. That's not the game to bring Kyler Murray back, A, against this defense, B, on the road. You want to try to ease a guy that you have a huge investment in, ease him back in as easily as possible. But I mean, I don't know if I've ever seen anything so dominant. And I think it was something like the first 3 plays, it was like 25 or 35 yards or something. And then the final 40-something plays, it was only 33 yards total. I mean, this kind of looks like, John, obviously, you a high school coach or whatever. This kind of looks like, you had to suspend the entire varsity team. The district told you, no, we're playing. And you basically had to run out the JV and the freshmen against, one of the top varsity teams in the state. It was just an absolute, stranglehold of what happened between the Browns defense and the Cardinals offense yesterday.
Yeah, it really was. One game we had this year, we allowed my defense allowed 81 total yards in the game. Didn't allow a single score, I think it was like 8 first downs on like 9 drives or something like that. Just an absolute dominant performance or whatever. And this was better. This was better against an NFL team. So, it's really really impressive what they were able to do. It's a combination of obviously really great play and then really good scheme. And then, the factor that the Cardinals were starting a 5th-round rookie that, I didn't think was an NFL, like a great NFL prospect coming into the, the draft process or whatever. I saw them play against Kansas once, and I was like, yeah, this guy doesn't have it, even though he grades well or whatever for Houston. But it was just an absolute dominant performance that, I've never seen that in the NFL where you give up, I think it was a net total of 58 yards or whatever it was. And then 33 after the first series of the game or whatever. Just wild, absolute wild performance from the Browns defense. Really you can't take that for granted. It was so good. It was better than anything that they've shown all year, even though that we've seen really good performances from this unit already.
It was actually funny because I did the crossover episode with our lockdown, and he's like, I don't have high expectations. He kind of throws a nice deep ball, and I was like, well, how's he going to throw a deep ball? He's got no offensive lineman. He really doesn't have any wide. And he was kind of, yeah. He was like, well, I'm not going to argue with you there. Yeah, we're probably not going to get to see the deep ball. Hey, for Clayton Tune, hey, I give the kid a lot of respect. Obviously, a really, really unfortunate and crappy situation to be put into, on the road. And that's maybe one of those ones where you tell, I know it's my first NFL start, but maybe there'll be another one, guys. You don't need to come. It's okay, really. I don't mind if nobody comes. You guys probably don't want to see this anyway. But Jim Schwartz, and look, this is going to be the most difficult thing here is, as much as yesterday was supposed to be that way, and you were basically supposed to go basically beat up on a weakling, it ain't going to be the same this week. You literally just went from, to use the phrase, they literally just went from checkers, and they are absolutely going to the, best possibility of chess there is this week.
Yeah. It's kind of like symmetry, right? Like they had the Titans game earlier in the year, and what they allowed, that's the game that they
93,
allowed,
I think, something like that.
Yeah, 93, right? So you had an absolute dominant performance against the Titans, and then they turn around and get, just smacked all across the field against the Ravens. Part of that being Deshaun Watson not being the quarterback, and you're starting a rookie on short notice and stuff like that. But really, this is the NFL. You're never as good as you think you are, and you're never as bad as you do think you are, right? So the Cardinals aren't as bad as a 58 yards total in a game type of offense or team or whatever. They're just not. These are NFL players, and Browns had an extraordinarily good game. The Cardinals didn't, right? Again, with the Ravens game, the Browns weren't as bad as what they showed on that game, and even the Ravens have been flying high for several weeks now, where they've just been playing absolutely dominant football. At any moment, this could come crashing back down for them because it's the NFL. And so I think with this, it's just going to be an absolute, slugfest for both teams. I think you're going to see a highly dominant defensive performance here from both sides of the ball. The Browns are going to come in there, just really amped up to not let what happened again. I think, we've seen it time and time again. Like Kevin Stefanski gets this team ready after a loss. You talk about coming after a loss to the Ravens, earlier in the year. So what is it for Stefanski's first year? They lost, 38-6 against the Ravens in the game, a season opener, and then the fast forward to the end of the season. Did they beat them, or was it really?
No, that was that Monday night game. It was like 45-42, something like that. It was a Monday nighter. I remember that went down. Yeah.
Yeah. So it was a much closer affair. 47-42. A game that could have easily gone one way or the other. Obviously, you hope that the defense can hold up better than what they did there. But I think Stefanski does a really good job of second time around of getting the team ready and not having a situation that happened. Even a couple weeks, 2021, they lost on that, what is it, Thursday night or Sunday night game or whatever, and they came back the next, after the bye and won that one. So he does a good job of second time against the Ravens.
There's no question about that. We're going to switch it up here, though. Obviously, there's going to be yet another change for the Cleveland Browns on the offensive side of the ball here. Minimum 4 weeks. We're going to discuss that with John here. Your latest Locked On Browns continues. Appreciate everybody for being along for the ride. Score early this NFL season with FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook. Right now, new customers get $150 in bonus bets with any winning $5 money line bet. That's $150 if your team wins. If you've been thinking about joining FanDuel, there's no better time to get in on the action. The app is so easy to use. There's a wide range of betting options, including spreads, player props, over-unders, and more. So visit FanDuel.com/lockedon and kick off the NFL season. FanDuel, official partner of the NFL. Jeff Lloyd, John Kosko, we continue here with your latest Locked On Browns. And I appreciate everybody who makes Locked On Browns their first listen every single day. John, there is going to be an issue here now for the Cleveland Browns. It was actually ironic the way it went down yesterday. Obviously, Jed Wills goes down, misses some plays. All of a sudden, Jed Wills comes back in. Hudson goes back to the sidelines. A play or two later, DeJuan Jones goes down again, and then Hudson goes in. DeJuan Jones was able to finish the game and obviously spoke candidly about his teammate and all that he's been through. I said it yesterday. I'll say it again today. Yeah, folks, technical difficulties, everything. It's a Monday, I guess. But I said it yesterday, and look, I've been critical of Jed Wills in the past, but the one thing you can never question is the guy's toughness. I still go back to his second season in the NFL, the Kansas City Chiefs game on the road. Guy left on a cart, proceeded to make every single start from there on out. Obviously, we all knew he was dinged yesterday, left the game once, did come back, ended up leaving the game for good. Now, again, the story is he's going on IR. It is an MCL injury. Obviously, it sounds like a sprain with the opposite possibility of returning. But either way, John, there's a left tackle question here for the next 4 weeks. And I do believe we sat here 1 week ago, a little before the NFL trade deadline, and I did propose to you a position or two you thought the Browns should address on the offensive line. And Mr. Kosko, with all his wisdom, did predict offensive line, offensive tackle, to be precise, to be one of those things. I don't assume they're going to even attempt to move DeJuan Jones at this point. So it is looking like James Hudson, your left tackle, for maybe the next 3 or 4 weeks. Certainly an issue and not an ideal issue right now at this time for the Browns.
Yeah, it is definitely not. Unfortunately, me calling for a left tackle or just a swing tackle, a backup tackle or whatever, just because of I saw it, right? One injury away and you're starting James Hudson, and Hudson has struggled. I think in the game yesterday when Jed Wills first went out, he came in for a handful of snaps and was down. He received like a downgrade on like 4 straight plays, and they weren't like minor downgrades. They were significant ones. Just getting beat left and right. And, maybe with a week of preparation, he's going to be better. But I think what you're going to probably find is the Browns are going to look to the practice squads and of other teams and look to get somebody to come in because they're going to need that depth at least. So, yeah, it's going to be a rough one. And I know that we do dog on Jed Wills, because has he lived up to that, 10th overall pick, first round billing? No, definitely not. Tristan Wirfs has been better. Obviously, Andrew Thomas has been better. He's been hurt this year or whatever, but he's not played like a first round talent, but he's still, a solid player and not an absolute sieve. Whereas James Hudson, like in his reps that he had yesterday was a 48.5. His pass protection was a 29.8. Like those are game wrecking type numbers. And especially if you're going to go up against a Baltimore Ravens team that has pass rushers and rotates them really well. So it's going to be, we'll see what type of magic Kevin Stefanski can do with, try to mitigate the loss there and see what comes of it if they go to the practice squads and, sign somebody off somebody's practice squad, because they will definitely need the help.
And obviously, last week, Ty Nsekhe obviously went on to injured reserve. So there's another Browns. So that is actually technically 3 tackles for the Cleveland Browns right now on injured reserve. There is a player available in free agency, Joe Haig. He had actually spent a bunch of time with the Cleveland Browns last year. You got to think it's a possibility of a name they could bring in, at least, when you're in a situation like this, familiarity with the system obviously is pretty huge. And Josh Dobbs says poo on all of that, obviously, after yesterday's performance. But John, look, 5-3, and this is the critical stretch here now. Obviously, you go to Baltimore this week. You come home for Pittsburgh the following week. Any aspirations of winning the AFC North probably ride on these two games. You got your quarterback back, feeling good about himself. The defense is coming off a monster performance. Special teams, punter, kicker have been solid. You got a little B12 shot in the punt return game yesterday from James Proche. There's never a good time, obviously, to have to go play these teams. But you probably couldn't ask for a better scenario, minus your left tackle, than for the Browns to be going into these games now.
Yeah, absolutely. This is going to determine the AFC North, and at least be a big part of it. Like if you don't, if you go 1-1 in these games, you're likely not winning the AFC North. You have to go 2-0 because of how good the AFC North is. If the season were to end right now, all four of the AFC North teams would be in the playoffs. That's how strong this division is. You have one of the most dominant defenses of the past 2 decades, and you're now into a locked battle of the best division in football. It is what it is. Now you need to have the offensive firepower to go with that, and things can look really good for this team. But it starts with Sunday against Baltimore, who's also playing extremely good football right now, arguably the best in the NFL. So, you have to win your AFC North games if you want to make it to the playoffs, and especially if you want to win the division. So they have a good test in front of them, and it's basically the season is all in front of them right now. And it starts with Baltimore.
Look, I mean, they are the premier team in the AFC North right now. There is no ideal opportunity or for when they come. But look, the Browns right now appear to be, the best version of themselves, certainly with DW4 back under center leading this team. Defense obviously clicking on all cylinders. The question comes is, if you're not ready this week, the question is, will you ever be ready? Essentially, is the question. PFF John Kosko. We roll John in here obviously once a week. We try to break everything down after each and every Cleveland Browns game. It's a lot more fun to do after a 27 dismantling, of course, of the Arizona Cardinals. Make sure you're following John at John Kosko 3. Certainly always appreciative of his time. Myself, Jeff Lloyd, your host here now, my 7th season here with Locked On Browns. Appreciate everybody who makes Locked On Browns their first listen every single day. Everyday crowd just keeps getting bigger and bigger. May I suggest joining the Everyday Crowd by subscribing to Locked On Browns YouTube channel. And of course, the show is always available, always free, wherever you get your podcasts. This has been your daily delivery of all things Dog Pound. LGB on the LOB. Let's go Browns.